We thought it would be fun to do a video about the great Ocean Grove bathing suit controversy of the 1870s. So first let's take a look at what swimsuits looked like in those days.
Here's a group of people in the 1870s on the beach in Ocean Grove. The ladies' bathing suits are like full-length gowns. And look at this guy on the right. His suit actually comes with full-length pants and a jacket.
I wore this costume in the annual 4th of July parade last year in Ocean Grove, New Jersey. It's not exactly authentic to the 19th century because I made this out of nice cool cotton. The real thing would have been made out of wool flannel.
Suits of the early 1870s completely covered the arms and came with full-length bloomers. The suits came in different colors, but most commonly in blue with white trim. By the mid-1870s, shorter sleeves became common for both men and women. They were certainly a lot more comfortable in the heat of summer. This picture is from Harper's Bazaar of 1876. In the Ocean Grove record of 1875, we see Halsey and Clayton's store advertising bathing and boating suits, ready-made or made to order on short notice. And they boast that our flannels are indigo blue and warranted not to fade. You could also shop at Jimson Brothers General Store on Pittman Avenue near Pilgrim Pathway for bathing clothes or bathing costumes.
A 19th century bathing costume was incomplete without footwear. Now, a lot of people today wear these stretchy neoprene ocean shoes, but back in the day, swimmers wore bathing shoes or bathing boots made out of canvas. Now, not too many people know that right here in Ocean Grove, New Jersey, bathing shoe technology made a little leap forward.
Remember Halsey and Clayton's store with the non-fading flannel? By 1877, they moved to a bigger space on Main Avenue and became the C.C. Clayton Dry Goods Emporium. The owner of that store, Cornelius C. Clayton, must have sold a lot of bathing costumes. But when it came to the manufacture of bathing shoes, he thought he could do better. He decided to tinker a little, made some bathing shoes himself, and on July 17, 1877, he was awarded a U.S. patent for improvement in bathing shoes. Here's the drawing he submitted to the patent office. He describes the shoe as being made of canvas cloth with a cork sole. He went on to advertise it as the celebrated CCC bathing shoe. They probably look something like this pair of Victorian-era bathing shoes that we spied on eBay.
If you came to Ocean Grove on vacation in the 1870s, you could either buy a bathing costume or rent one. And by this time, there were bathing pavilions on both ends of Ocean Grove Beach.
Joseph Ross owned the pavilion on the north end, and Mr. T.W. Lilligore's pavilion was on the south end. Both pavilions offered changing rooms for rent by the day, week, or season, and swimsuits were advertised as woolen suits to hire. In 1877, someone complained publicly that if you swam at Ross's pavilion, the suit you rented might be of a, quote, rather antiquated pattern and missing a few buttons, which led to Lilligore advertising that his suits were brand new. These two pavilions were competitive throughout the 1870s, 80s, and 90s. They kept trying to one-up each other. In 1879, a Mrs. Carmichael from Baltimore complained that the changing rooms at the Lilligore were ridiculously small. She described them as being furnished with a bench, a pail of water, a towel, and a few nails. She said that changing there was, quote, slow work and intensely unsatisfactory, for it is impossible to dress properly, and dry garments on half-dried limbs is a discomfort known only to the initiated. So Lilligore enlarged his facility. And so did Ross. But Ross may have had a slight edge. As early as 1877, Ross was providing robes, combs and brushes, and a looking glass in every changing room.
But Lilligore may have won in the handsome lifeguard category. In those days, lifeguards were called bathing masters. And in the summer of 1877, someone said that the bathing masters at Ross's pavilion were, well, homelier than the ones at Lilligore's. Poor Frank Morton and Samuel Haven. Well, fortunately, somebody jumped to their defense in the newspaper and said, sure, our lady friends could not have meant the patient, pleasant-faced Sam, who never tired of taking them in and out of the surf, nor could they have referred to Frank, for his wife knows better.
So what about that controversy I mentioned? In the 1870s, Ocean Grove was the setting of a passionate public debate about what they called the bathing question. Some folks had started complaining about certain other folks wearing their wet bathing suits on the street. Parading public avenues in scanty and bedraggled costume was how one person put it. Here's something to keep in mind. When Ocean Grove was founded in 1869, the town was essentially a big collection of canvas tents. People came to attend the Methodist camp meeting, sitting on benches in the open air for religious services and kind of roughing it. And when they went for a swim in the ocean, they would just wear their wet suits back to their tents and change there. In fact, some people had separate tents next to their sleeping tents solely for the purpose of changing out of wet bathing suits. It was a very relaxed atmosphere. But just a few years later, Ocean Grove was turning into a full-fledged town with permanent buildings including hotels, shops, and houses. By this time, people started to complain about those brazen souls parading through the streets in their dripping wet wool suits.
Some people wrote to the Ocean Grove newspaper complaining that they especially didn't need to see fat or elderly people in bathing suits. Now that shows us that in the 1870s there were jerks in Ocean Grove.
The wet swimsuit crowd argued that Ocean Grove had always been a place where one didn't have to worry about being fashionable. Why did that have to change? Here's where the bathing pavilions came into the argument. Because the changing rooms existed, people argued there was no reason to walk home in one's bathing suit.
The wet walkers argued that it cost 10 cents to rent one of those changing rooms, and that was a lot of money for some people. Besides, they said, some of us still have changing tents at home, so why pay?
Then folks argued that the bathing pavilions provided important services to everyone on the beach, not just those who rented changing rooms. Services like bathing masters and lifelines. Lifelines were long ropes that were tethered to a series of wood posts and extended several yards into the ocean. Bathers would hold onto the ropes for safety as the waves rolled in.
So some people thought if a bather wasn't willing to pay 10 cents for a changing room, they should at least give 5 cents to the bathing masters. There was even a name for people who wouldn't pay. They called them deadheads.
Then a physician chimed in, saying, No, it's not that. Anyone walking through town in a wet bathing suit was putting the entire community's health at risk. They could catch cold and then spread it to others. In the Ocean Grove Record, he urged all bathers to remove their wet suits as quickly as possible and rub the body with, I quote, a coarse towel or flesh brush. A coarse towel. That sounds delightful. And what is a flesh brush, I wonder? Is that like a loofah?
By 1880, it was officially against the rules to strut around town in your bathing suit. And in that summer of 1880, Ocean Grove police stopped 91 people for that very infraction. Now, I don't know what the punishment was, but 11 years later, in 1891, the Camp Meeting Association passed an ordinance to prevent vice and immorality. It stated that no person shall swim or bathe in the waters without being properly dressed, and violators would pay $20 for each offense.
People outside of Ocean Grove were aware of its strict bathing suit policies. Here's a cartoon from the Illustrated Police News titled, Bathing Dress Censorship at Ocean Grove.
Now, as a side note, that same 1891 ordinance also said that no person shall appear in a public place in a state of nudity or in a dress not belonging to his or her sex. Violators would spend 10 days in the county jail, but that wasn't enough to deter these young gentlemen.
This postcard was written in Ocean Grove on the 4th of July, not sure what year. It was addressed to Aunt Hallie and jokingly signed Edie instead of Eddie, perhaps? You have to wonder if this photo inspired the ordinance in the first place. The nudity portion of the ordinance may have been inspired by a visitor to Ocean Grove in 1877, described as a prominent New York lawyer who was said to be in the habit of rowing on the lake and bathing in the surf in a nude state on the Sabbath. Definitely a no-no. That same year, though, a lady from Brooklyn wrote about the Grove and its superb bathing. At what other place could a lady go in bathing alone and not have a crowd of loafers staring or making remarks? She noted that she felt much safer in Ocean Grove than she did back home at Coney Island.
Today in Ocean Grove, I'm happy to say you can walk back to your house or hotel in your bathing suit without suffering legal consequences. And that's just one good reason to come to beautiful Ocean Grove, New Jersey. If you need another, the Historical Society gives great walking tours. Learn more online at oceangrovehistory.org or give us a call at 732-774-1869.